A thread by Carlos Osuida. Rolling Stone tries to explain defund the police to make it sound reasonable. Ends up showing it's even worse than people thought. From rollingstone.com, a practical guide to defunding the police. Quote, if someone is dealing with a mental health crisis or someone has a substance abuse disorder, we're calling other entities that are better equipped to help these folks. End quote. Excellent idea. About 25 years ago, the guy up the street called the cops so he could commit suicide by being shot to death. My sister had a police scanner, so we listened. The cops were all warned over and over that this man was mentally ill. Police asked to go into the house across the street from the man in question, and they set up an observation post with high-powered binoculars. The guy burst out of the front door and a voice shouted, "Hold your fire! Hold your fire! He's holding a banana!" 2 years later, the guy had another breakdown. The city sent a social worker. The man went downstairs and blew his own head off with a shotgun. This time, nobody had called the cops. He left behind a wife and a 7-year-old daughter. Back to Rolling Stone. Quote, when people get the specific help they need earlier, they're less likely to end up in the kind of dangerous situation police might be called to defuse. End quote. We're doing a great job giving people the specific help they need now. Remove the police from the situation, and what could go wrong? Pretty much everything, actually. Quote, according to a study from the Treatment Advocacy Center, a person with an untreated mental health issue is 16 times more likely to be killed by police than other members of the community. End quote. Right. Why is that? Because it's illegal to treat people against their will. The Supreme Court ruled in Addington v. Texas, 441 U.S. 418, 1979, that a person can't be committed unless there is, quote, clear, unequivocal, and convincing evidence that the person is mentally ill. This makes it impossible to hospitalize and treat people. We also have no facilities to treat people. There are 43,000 psychiatric beds in the entire country. So, defund the police means prevent the cops from saving people from the violent mentally ill, since there's no way to treat the mentally ill against their will. The Rolling Stone article relies on people not knowing that you can't treat the mentally ill against their will. Also, this argument is a straw man. Police don't treat the mentally ill. The argument is to remove the police and replace them with nothing. From Rolling Stone, quote, same logic should be applied to nonviolent crimes, as it was before the broken windows era of policing, the philosophy that small visible crimes must be punished or they'll beget larger crimes, became popular in police departments around the country. In Minneapolis, Reclaim the Block and the Black Visions Collective are lobbying for $45 billion worth of Minneapolis Police Department's budget, $193 million in 2020, be redirected into violence prevention programs, youth homelessness programs, an opioid task force, and mental health response team. They've had a track record of success. Last year, they convinced the city council to shift $1.1 million from the police budget to violence prevention efforts. End quote. Let's take a look at Minneapolis according to Neighborhood Scout. Quote, overall, Minneapolis is a city of professionals, sales, and office workers and managers. Also of interest is that Minneapolis has more people living here who work in computers and math than 95% of the places in the U.S. Of important note, Minneapolis is also a city of artists. Minneapolis has more artists, designers, and people working in media than 90% of the communities in America. This concentration of artists helps shape Minneapolis's character. End quote. Ready? Quote, with a crime rate of 50 per 1,000 residents, Minneapolis has one of the highest crime rates in America compared to all communities of all sizes, from the smallest towns to the very largest cities. End quote. neighborhoodscout.com. So, all those progressive computer nerds and artists live in a city with one of the highest crime rates in the country of any city of similar size, and the plan is to reduce the power of the police. Why not? Does anybody actually care? Seriously, why should I care? From the Rolling Stone, quote, divesting from police and reinvesting in social services isn't the end of the solution, end quote. Blue states already spend a crapload on social services. But here we see the admission that it's all virtue signaling. Quote, a budget is a moral document, and where cities invest their money speaks to their values, end quote. Hollow symbolism. Striking poses. Making idiots feel good about themselves. As a result, people like me have to have a life and death fight with two homeless maniacs on my own property. But I was prepared. Situational awareness. Total mercilessness. No hesitation. No regrets. This shouldn't be happening in the United States. I was born in a third world country. All the kids were insane from stress, so we fought all the time. My brothers and I used to fight all the time. Physical fights, punching each other bloody. My father or mother broke up the fights by hitting us harder than we hit each other. So I'm used to violence. But people in this country should not have to live the way that I did. Defund the police means let criminals do whatever they want. It's actually quite tough to break through the bizarre shields of nonsense that people put around themselves simply so that they can indulge their fears. They say things like, take this seriously. What does that mean? I'll tell you what it means. Be alert. Your country needs more alerts. Stop listening to gore crows. Or don't. I don't care. But I'm not afraid, even after the Battle of Carlos Osuita. Bad stuff happens. You know what I haven't said once in my life? I never thought it could happen to me. Why not? What makes you so special? Most of human history is filled with turmoil. Black Lives Matter are buffoons. They're totally infiltrated by the feds. Socialist countries are all failures. Everyone's watching this American economic recovery and thinking, holy smokes, how did Trump do it? Let the whole world march in opposition to a non-existent problem. Who cares? The world is stupid, so it does stupid things. All the people marching against us are guilty of atrocities you can't even imagine. They're crazy. None of them have figured out how to do anything right, and they're all racists. So screw them. Grow spines, for God's sake. My mother was an airplane spotter at the age of 14. My father did all sorts of clandestine military and intelligence stuff that he never discussed. One of my cousins was in the 1st Army Aviation Special Operations Unit. Another cousin was a U.S. Marshals Service Special Operations Group. Another cousin was LAPD Robbery Homicide Division. Another cousin was a Hemet PD officer, undercover detective, who busted criminal biker gangs. One uncle was on a U.S. Army Rangers long-range reconnaissance patrol team. My great-uncle was a U.S. Army officer of the Imperial Iranian Gendarmerie and spent 6 months in the outback helping them hunt down terrorists. The protest in D.C. was a big fat goose egg. All they did was smoke pot, chant, and wander away. There was some vandalism, but all they're doing is alienating everyone. And remember, the Democrats still don't have a nominee. And that means Trump has not yet begun to fight.